Hello everyone! Today I am here to chat with you about the books that I would like to read this spring, and we're in the, I guess, the thick of spring at this point. In my mind, spring begins at the beginning of March. I know that's not how it works, but it's just how my mind works, so I feel like I'm late to this party. But today's the day that I'm taking down all of my wintry things around the house, and I'm gonna put up some spring stuff. And so I thought today's the day to do this. So let's dive in. I've got a lot of books here about motherhood and gardens and that, I don't know, that's where my mind went. So let's begin. The first book I want to chat with you guys about is The Last Garden in England by Julia Kelly. This is about 5 women spanning, I think, 3 time periods, and they're all connected by a garden. We first meet Venetia in 1907 when she arrives at this beautiful home and decides to make a masterpiece of their garden. And then we flash forwards to 1944 and we follow, I think, 3 women, each of whom are, dealing with their own issues in their own lives. Some of them don't like where they are. Some of them are quite happy, but they're all tied to this garden, and they, I think, stay together for generations or decades or something along those lines. And then in present day, we follow Emma, who has the chance to restore this famed garden at Highbury House. And can you think of a book that's more springy than this? I don't think so. Maybe My Cousin Rachel. Maybe. Anyway, I'd love to read this, and so I think I shall. Next is The Patron Saint of Liars by Anne Patchett. This sounds so good. This is about a woman living in Kentucky who is married, but she is pregnant and decides that she would like to give the baby up for adoption at St. Elizabeth's. It is a home for unwed mothers, but she is odd woman out in that situation. However, when she does have her child, Rose, she decides to stay. And she decides to stay with her child, raise her child there, and she has all sorts of interactions with the other women who go there. It sounds incredible. I love Anne Patchett's writing, and so it sounds very perfect for this time of year. Next is the Jane Austen Society. This is about a group of people who gather together. They're very different individuals, but they get together with the common plan to refurbish and work on Jane Austen's last home. It's in the small English village of Chawton. I think that was Jane Austen's last home. And this takes place just after World War II has ended. And it's about these perfect strangers coming together for a common cause, and hopefully they find friendship. I hope there's not too much romance in here, but who knows? I will just have to suffer through it if there is. And again, the cover just screams spring in my mind. Okay, we're moving into a bit more of a sinister kind of book, because I need a little bit of thrillers on my list. And this is The Unheard by Nikki French. This has been on several TBRs and it just hasn't happened yet, and I don't know why, because you guys know how much I adore Nikki French. Brilliant authors. This is about a woman named Tess who is just recently becoming separated from her husband. Now they have a young child named Poppy together. I think she's like 3 or 4. She's very little. And Poppy comes home one day and she's drawn a picture. And when Tess asks her about this picture, Poppy says he killed and killed, or something along those lines. Very disturbing. And she doesn't know whether to chalk this up as her child being a kid and a bit weird, because kids do say and think strange things and draw strange things, or did her child see something horrific? and it is about exploring what happened, and it sounds fantastic. Again, a motherhood story that I thought would be good for this time of year. Next is a gothic book that I don't know if it screams spring to me at all, but there's something about it that just, I really want to pick it up really, really soon. This is Beneath the Stairs. And this is by Jennifer Fawcett, and I've heard very good things about her. I think this is her debut, and she's been compared to Simon St. James, or Simone St. James, I should say. So this is about two best friends. We follow Claire, who she and her best friend Abby went into a haunted house when I think they were teens, and they both came out quite scarred. It was rumored to be haunted. I will say this home was rumored to be haunted. Maybe it was. They left scarred, and I think that they have lost touch. Now, 20 years later, Abby has attempted suicide, and I think in that same haunted house, and Claire needs to find out what happened, find out the history of this house. It sounds so good. I have such high hopes for this book. I should probably stop doing that because that can ruin a book quite easily. Just go in and enjoy, April. You don't have to do this to yourself. But yeah, that's Beneath the Stairs. Next is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. And this is about siblings who gather together after their mother has died, and their mother has left behind two things: a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe, and a voice recording. And in this recording, she starts describing the life of a woman who was a very strong swimmer and escaped her island home under suspicion of murder. And I think over the course of this time that they're listening to this recording, they're questioning who their mother really was and learning about who their mother really was. And it just sounds really, I think this one's going to be emotional. Speaking of emotional, I mean, wow. The School for Good Mothers. I just picked this up really recently. I think you saw that in my last video. And this is about a world that's a bit dystopian. It's a world in which parents are being watched by Big Brother in a very serious way. If you slip up in any way, shape, or form, you will lose your child, and you might have to go to the School for Good Mothers to learn how to be a better mom and hopefully get your child back. And that is exactly what happens to our main character, Frida. She really has nothing else in her world going for her. She has a career that her parents aren't very proud of her for. Her husband is having an affair that he will not end. But she has, I think Harriet is this little girl's name, and Harriet is her daughter, and she loves her daughter so much. One day, I believe she leaves her daughter at home for like an hour or maybe even less. And of course, the government, I believe it's the government, steps in and takes her daughter, and she has to go to the School for Good Mothers. I want to read this like right now. It sounds so good. Okay, 3 more books, and then I promise I will leave you. Love you and leave you. The next one is Mrs. England by Stacey Halls. I got this like a year ago, and I don't know why I haven't read it. By the way, I don't understand why this hasn't arrived in Canada yet. I got this off of Book Depository, and I don't think it's been released in Canada or the US. Let me know if you've found this. In any case, Mrs. England is about a nurse, I believe, who graduates, and she ends up going to this home called Hardcastle House, and she's there to take care of the children at Hardcastle House. And she meets Mrs. England. Everything else seems decent. Mrs. England seems very odd. She's not connecting to her family in any way, shape, or form. And she's trying to understand a little bit about this woman, Lillian England. Of course, Ruby herself comes to this home and this position with all sorts of secrets of her own. I really love Stacy's writing. She's just a beautiful writer, and I am in the mood to read this. Again, very springy cover. So next up is House of Glass by Susan Fletcher. It is another Gothic book. This takes place in June 1914, and we meet a young woman named Clara, and she is summoned to this enormous house in Gloucester. Her task is to fill this greenhouse with all sorts of exotic plants. The garden itself is absolutely stunning, but the house that is attached to the garden seems dead, like completely unloved. And it's the juxtaposition of this garden that has had so much love poured into it, and this house that's just blah, just sitting there with nothing going on, makes her wonder. She wonders about the man who owns the home. Clara wants to know who he is. She starts to venture into the house and the darkness of the house. It sounds really good. Again, don't know why I haven't read it. It sounds like a perfect me book. And last but not least is a classic that I'd like to read on audio if it comes in time. And this is The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. This has been on a few of my TBRs in the past, but it just hasn't happened. So this follows Isabel, who is a wealthy, stunningly beautiful woman. She is American, and she is expected to marry. And she travels to Europe with her aunt. And while she is there, she has to somehow choose between suitors who may all be hiding sickeningly different motives behind their avowals of love. That sounds great. I'd love to read that too. And so those are all of the books that I'd like to read this spring. Let me know in the comments below. What are you hoping to read in the spring? Do you have a spring TBR? Do you do monthly TBRs? How do you work your TBRs? Again, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and I will talk with you very soon. Bye, guys.